I'll just give you examples of some of the kinds of barriers that I think still exist, but they were enormous barriers then. Is that there was sexual harassment, and I could tell you stories that would make your hair curl more than it is now about some of the things that happened to women, young women, when they were practicing, and that is not to say that it still doesn't happen. But there are institutions, there's ombudsman, there's legislation, there's all kinds of recourse that's available now that didn't used to be available if you were being sexually harassed. I think that there was a glass ceiling, so that when I was practicing, in this whole city, there were no more than 3 women who were partners in private law firms, big private law firms in town. So if you look at what are my role models to become a partner, how do I think I get there when I don't see a lot of women succeeding ahead of me? Well, we all thought that, right? I mean, it is not easy to become a partner, and I'm talking about 30 years ago, in a big law firm. It also wasn't easy to talk about it. So, talking about equality issues in a profession that's dominated by men, where you're trying to get ahead, it took a tremendous amount of courage to have that conversation, because they didn't believe that it happened, and they felt threatened when you had that dialogue with them. We're not doing it. It doesn't happen in our firm. It happens. Maybe it happens other places, but it doesn't happen here. So there were some really difficult conversations that occurred then. Even just getting people to acknowledge that there potentially was an issue. I graduated in 1982 from the University of Calgary, and our class was the first class in Canada that graduated more women than men. And so I was fortunate to have some pretty strong friendships with women that I made in law school, and when I entered the legal profession, I had some significant support from women that I practiced with who were my contemporaries. I'm going to say that probably one of my biggest mentors is my dear friend, Justice Sheila Martin, who she wasn't a judge then. She was a professor at U of C, and I taught the family law course for a couple of years at U of C, and Sheila and I became fast friends, and she's been on the forefront of fighting gender issues, equality issues, for the last 30 years. And so a lot of this work we've done together. And I felt like in my darkest moments, when I didn't know if I could do this anymore, I could always talk to her, and we would always be able to support each other and figure out, yeah, we can actually do this. It is hard. We can do this work. We recommended that every law society in Canada develop and put into place policies that dealt with part-time work, parental leave, and alternate work arrangements. And we developed protocols to help law firms and members of the private bar think about how they could look at their own firms and address systemic barriers within their firms. So, and how they could effectively implement some of these policies so that you could see some change. That I thought was pretty significant. And I'd say that now most law firms, almost all law firms, have those 3 types of policies available to them, to women, and to men actually, in some instances, in terms of parental leave. One of the recommendations that we made is that the National Canadian Bar Association implement an award that would be given out annually to an individual or an institution who had made a significant impact in affecting equality rights in Canada. And it was called the Touchstones Award, the National Touchstones Award. And a number of law societies have their own types of awards that recognize efforts in the area of advancing equality.